Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
All right, welcome back to Bench Opinions, coming to you live from Roma.
As you can see
By the hotel room behind us, it's obviously very Rome-inspired, but we were actually just in Paris, watching the France versus Springboks game. Dominic, give me an oversight of the whole experience.
Where do you? I mean, first of all, if anyone has the opportunity to go watch France play rugby, but preferably against the team that you support at the Stade de France, you have to go do it. I think that's the first thing I can say. And to sum it up, it was, obviously the result played in the favor of a Springbok fan. There was a lot of drama, there was a lot of intrigue, but just the stadium, moving into the stadium, listening to the anthem, the French fans and what they give you, I think you can be equally celebratory about the way they present themselves, but also a little bit disappointed in them to a certain degree, just because there was, obviously you're upset, but even before the game there was a couple of boos in our direction, which I don't know if is exactly as a lot of the people say about the Springboks is in the spirit of the game, but so it definitely throws the kitchen sink at you though, in terms of experiencing rugby in a nation that increasingly is falling in love with the game of rugby, which is France.
It's definitely a beehive, and you feel the energy when you're in there. I mean, when the anthems are being sung, I thought the South African anthem was sung with quite a bit of backing, and there's just nothing in comparison to when the French national anthem comes on. They fade out the music and they just completely take over a cappella, and it's you know that the game's on, as they say. Sure,
I can see a revolution starting in that country.
Exactly,
people are very passionate. So yeah, it's good to see, and as you can hear from my voice, I try to give them as much as I could as well.
As you said, there's a lot of booing towards certain players. Obviously, still hurting from the 2023 quarterfinals knockout. When the likes of an Eben Etzebeth came on screen, for his infamous knockdown or slapdown or whatever you'd like to call it. But then also going over to like Cobus Reinach, who's played many years in France and is a pretty well-known figure there when his face comes up on screen, or Henri Pollard, who was in the crowd. Lots of booing going on. So you knew these guys, for them, it was a grudge match. And the spectacle itself did not disappoint. It was quite the game.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was a lot of toing and froing, and it was a bit of a tug of war in the beginning. But it seems, and we've spoken so much about it, it seems that Rassie Erasmus and the Springbok team have found a way to really pull away from sides in that last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Look, the yellow card on the side of the French, I mean, we can get to the red card in a second, but the yellow card on the side of the French killed any momentum that they could have, or any opportunity they would have maybe had to exploit the Springboks being down to 14 men, and it just took the wind out of them. But I think it coincided with the substitutes from the Springboks coming on, or at least some of the work that the substitutes had done early on in the second half, players like Ruan Nokia really knocking the wind out of them. And I think they did front up, but I think some teams underestimate how you can front up, but the Springboks are going to come at you for 80 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think that's just where I wouldn't say they let themselves down, I just think they were outplayed. And I think they were outcoached too. I mean, that's something we can get to now on the French coach and what this means for them, and even the whole French approach. But it's again and again and again, everything that Rassie kind of seems to do to innovate the game initially, and maybe you raise your eyebrows at it and go, all right, whether it be the 7-2 split on the bench, which he didn't use now. 6-2 split or 7-1 split, whether it's that or it's now Andre Esther isn't being a hybrid player. Everything that you raise your eyebrows at him initially doing turns out to be a core part of the game plan going down the line. And I think you cannot give a better resume to a coach than that. So yeah, that's kind of what I think the summation is of it. It's just they always had another move on the board, the Springboks.
Yep.
And the French, I think, just couldn't find a way to respond.
As you said, in the last 20 minutes, the game really turned, and I think that's indicative of the game being a game of two halves. The first one, Damien Penaud getting in for a fairly easy try in his books. I think that, it was pretty much a walk-in for him, with a great kick from Intermac to just get it, Thomas Ramos, to get it over Kurtley Arendse, who I felt, even watching it live, he didn't really make much of an effort to get back. I think that was a bit of he kind of dropped the ball on his part. And then And then Sasha tried to keep us in there with a couple of penalty kicks at goal. 6 points in the first half, I think, and then another 2 points from a conversion going amiss from Sasha. So not the best performance from his boot, at least from the kicking tee, but kept us in there until the end of the second half when the infamous Lood de Jager on Thomas Ramos tackle happened.
Yeah, I think 39th minute or something. I think the tackle happened. Look, for me, I think the only debatable point for me, in my opinion, is whether it really is a straight red and the implications that has. I think we've praised World Rugby's approach to saying, okay, let's have the bunker, let's send guys off, let's have a look at it, and then if it ticks all the boxes, then send a play off for 20 minutes so that games of rugby stay alive. I think it being a straight red card, given some of the factors that that Ramos was on his knees. There was also video footage coming out now where Lood de Jager looks like he's attempting to wrap and Ramos is using his forearm to kind of stop him. Ramos is bracing in such a way that he stops Lood de Jager from wrapping. I think Ramos also drops the ball forward, which is another last-minute movement that maybe changes the way his body is positioned. So there are factors I think that you could deem as mitigating, but I think if it goes bunker and then red and we can bring on someone else after 20 minutes, I think South African fans can have very little to complain about. And I think that is contextualized in the fact that Angus Gardner had a fantastic game as referee. He was very communicative. He seemed to have control of that game
for sure,
through and through. And I think that puts you at ease in knowing, okay, well, I mean, for me, I think at the end of the day, the Springboks come out and win that game. so I don't know how much there is for a Springbok fan or anyone to because they got the result then. But I don't know what you think. I think it's definitely a red. The question is whether it's straight or whether it's bunker and then red.
I'm not gonna lie. In my ignorance, I kind of had forgotten that it is still an option at giving a straight red. We've just gotten so used to the bunker reviews. Just give somebody else more time to look over it in more detail. And so I wasn't really aware that if you get a red, that you lose the player for the entirety of the match. I thought, oh yeah, I know, we'll get somebody coming back in 20 minutes, which wasn't the case. And I kept on counting all the players. I'm like, I'm missing somebody. It's 20 minutes have gone and I can't find the 15th player on the field. But that being said, when I saw it initially, obviously in the heat of the moment, I was like, no, guys, come on, surely that can't be a straight red. There's got to be a mitigating factor there. As you said, Thomas Ramos, it actually looks like he tried to pass the ball, like offload in tackle, hits Lood de Jager in the head, which I almost thought now in retrospect, it's like, maybe that then starts changing his body position. Who knows? Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Arm tucked equals no mitigation, according to the assistant referees who kind of talked Angus Gardner into the red. He kept on going, well, let's look at mitigating factors. They're both on the floor, on the ground. And then eventually he got convinced, let's say, by the sideline referees, but also by the TMO. Is it a wrong decision, right decision? I guess for us as Springboks fans, it doesn't really matter now because we won either way. I think if we had lost the game, or even if it had been a close game, I think there would have been a lot more debating, which is kind of unfair towards the refs to like let it slide if it works out for you and let it not slide if it doesn't work out for you, but it's just the nature of the game. Yeah,
look, I think a good way to look at it as well is compare the red of Tyrone the week before in comparison.
Well, then Tyrone was definitely not a red.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe is... The question is how's the severity and how do you grade it? And where do you start with reds and where do you finish with reds?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of put it into perspective a little bit more because, look, it got rescinded now, the red, but at least just in the heat of the battle and in the moment, I think compare those decisions because whatever some sort of commission after looking at it 145 times decides to do and how many love letters the opposition send in your favor to get a card rescinded, in this case for Byrne. If you look at those two decisions in the heat of the moment, you do see the sort of degrees of severity.
Yeah.
And maybe that should maybe start to put us at ease a little bit. Do you maybe give Byrne a yellow and Lood a bunker red? Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's still, at least you can see sort of the correlation between the severity and what the decisions were in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, but as you said, the rest of the game, Angus Gardner actually, we all felt that he had a really good one. So let's move off of that and talk more about the second half, and in particular the bench and the impact that they made. Obviously, in the last 20 minutes, as you said, the French seemed to have just been run off their feet, and the game really opened up, which was great for the likes of Amani, who came in at 10, pushing Sasha back to 15. Andre Esterhazen coming in, really playing a hybrid player now, being able to move between playing in the back line but also in the front row, because of the missing lock that we had.
So what I found most interesting, I think, about the whole thing is, not so long ago, you kind of had the option between Mani Limbok ball at 10 or Handré Pollard ball at 10. And with the emergence of Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu, I think you have Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu ball, and with him being able to shift to 15, which is a position where we're very thin at the moment, the Springboks, and the ability to bring Mani on, I feel like there is more continuity. Although Mani does bring, I would say, a slightly different skill set to Sasha as well. Not more, but maybe a little bit different. I find there are a couple things that Mani does do better, maybe in the simplification of things at times. So I almost feel like Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu is someone with Mani Limbok's DNA who's got a little bit more magic in him, or at least strives for a little bit more magic. And I think that's a great combination to have. Question is, what does it mean for Handré Pollard? I think he'll play a role in the greater squad. Let's see what happens in Italy. Maybe he does get a game. But that's been a huge shift, I think. And you combine that with the power that comes off the bench. I don't think it's a coincidence that with the emergence of these players that allow us to play such expansive rugby in the backline, the 6-2 split has become a thing of the past. Because I think Rushdie used to go full bore for let's overpower teams, because maybe, Dialendi, Jesse Creel, they just don't offer you what these new guys that have emerged offer you. And because of that, he kind of stuck to what he knows. And now it looks like there's this extra thing in that Swiss Army knife, or that is the Springboks team, that has been made possible with the emergence of these guys. Particularly, I call them, the class of Wellington almost. And you saw that as well. Ruan Nokia came on very early in that second half, and was destructive. Jasper Wiese ran at them for 80 minutes and looked like he had the upper hand for the entirety of that game against a massive French pack as well. We can't, you can't look past that. And the fact that we were able to maintain physical dominance at scrum time as well in the maul, with players like Malcolm Marks going 78 minutes in that front row, unbelievable. And I think it's like a two-pronged attack now, that the Springboks used to have maybe on the wings through players like Kurtley Arendse and Cheslin Colby, who could unlock sides, but it's a different beast.
You've definitely seen a transition from 2019 where you had kick, defend up in their territory, and then when we get the ball, maul it over, which many considered a very boring type of rugby. It was very innovative at the time. People started adopting it to their sort of way of playing. And now Rassie has decided, cool, next World Cup, we're going to go with a completely different style. And that style that he's trying to sort of adapt is a little bit of Tony ball, a lot faster, as you say, bring more backline players onto the bench so that we can use that speed. But not only speed in the back line, but also speed in the back rows. Like your Peter Steph Dutoy, your Ruan Nakia, even Sio Kolisi. These guys run. Jasper Wiese, run, and don't stop running. Massive engines on the guy. Even Etzebeth runs for days, right? So there's a lot of not just speed, but also endurance in the team. And with the adoption of playing this more flair rugby and champagne rugby, for ironic that we were in Paris, but playing that style of rugby, I think what Rassie acknowledges is, okay, we are going to make some mistakes. We are going to drop the ball. What happens when we drop the ball? Scrum. So our scrum needs to be good to be able to offset the mistakes that we're inevitably going to make from all of the flair rugby we're trying to play, which is working for us currently. Considering we were 14 men for the full second half against 14 men for the last 10 minutes, but the rest of the time against 15 guys, against the Six Nations champions, underdone or not, it's pretty impressive to come back and win with that score margin.
Yeah, it just does look like the Springboks play teams off the park at times, and I think physically as well. And I think if you look at the Maul playing a very important role in that second half, I think a lot of the backline play and this relentlessness that we call it, that's what we called the Wellington performance, which was relentless, plays into the hands, because all of a sudden the Maul becomes more powerful because of what you're doing to kind of exploit their players, using your backline. So it's a very exciting times. And again, I say it again, it just seems like Rassie always has another move on the chessboard, and it's phenomenal to see.
As we said in the lead up to this game, we were hoping for a win where there was no doubt. We were also hoping for a game where there was no cards, which unfortunately wasn't the case. Both Lood de Jager, but also Bielle-Biarrey, getting a yellow card for an accidental knock on when he was trying to attempt an interception. The game as a whole, still massive spectacle, and a very, very, very convincing win by the Springboks.
Just briefly, because we focus on the Springboks, just very briefly, France have to take a very hard look in the mirror, because there's been a lot of talk. I think they're going to kick themselves for not having sent more of a team to New Zealand. I just think that's a valuable opportunity to continue to grow a team, albeit for whatever reasons. But I think that's an experiment that, at least for now, hasn't worked. And
well, it's not an experiment, right? It's more the unions or the franchises not allowing their players to be released.
True, I think yes, but I also think it sounds like it was something that the French rugby union was willing to kind of do.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be surprised if they're back at the negotiating tables with the club soon. And
they have to, because it's not working.
Yeah. And let's see. I think they miss Dupont massively, but it's something that I've said in the past. I think this is a great opportunity for them to try and live life without Dupont. And it looks like they're not going to really get to do that because he's back in training. And I think the first second they're able to get him back in that side, and fair play to them. I mean, he's a fantastic rugby player. But is there an over-reliance there is the question mark.
It's a little bit like an island with Johnny Sexton.
Yeah.
If he's in the team, they're great. If he's not in the team, they're sickle. Yeah.
So watch the space.
Anyway, it was a spectacle nonetheless, and we enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yes, we
but
did.
there were other games this weekend. Let's just quickly go through them. So we had Wales versus Argentina, 28-52 to Argentina.
Yeah.
Kind of expected, right? France versus South Africa, as we said, 17-32. Then we had Italy beating Australia 26-19. Maybe one of the biggest shock results.
Massive body blow to Australia. Yeah.
Damn it, now I've activated some ad.
Thank you, Super Brew.
Yeah.
Now I have to pay to look at scores. No, we also had the island game against Japan.
Exactly. Well, first we had the England versus Fiji game, 38-18 to England. Also,
Apparently I didn't see it, but apparently a terrible red card for Fiji.
oh really?
Apparently, I just saw a tweet that is the worst red card I've ever seen from someone.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Actually haven't seen that game. Probably one of the most exciting and devastating games was the Scotland versus New Zealand game, 17-25 to New Zealand. Everybody obviously backing Scotland to, for the first time in history, beat the All Blacks.
Yeah.
But I think when you give the All Blacks a 17-0 lead, you're fighting an uphill battle that's not really doable.
Yeah. We've said it before. I think the Gregor Townsend just doesn't find ways to win games. I really think that it's just blatant. And I think this is a phenomenal generation of Scottish players. And, at Murrayfield, the crowd's up for it. Everyone's there, particularly on Remembrance Day like this. There's just we've been there before for that. I'm devastated.
Yeah.
But is what it is. Good, fantastic play by Mackenzie. Mackenzie's try was one of the best finishes
Unreal.
I've ever seen. So,
Unreal. Yeah. So well done to the All Blacks. They're finding a groove, which is good. Portugal, Uruguay beating Portugal. Romania beating Canada 31-21. Ireland, Japan, 41-10, also pretty much to be expected. And then Georgia, USA, Georgia convincingly beating USA 43-30. So those were the games from last weekend. South Africa, well, we're in Italy, obviously, so that means we're here following South Africa. They are going to be playing Italy. Italy, obviously, with a good win against Australia. What does that mean for Italy against South Africa?
I think Rassie has plans for games like this. I think if you look at some of the guys that didn't play a role in the game on this past weekend against France, I think you'll see some changes. I think Ethan Hooker, Caden Moody will come back into the side. Report, which is a very well-sourced Afrikaans newspaper with a rugby segment, reporting that don't be shocked to see Ethan Hooker and Caden Moody as the center pairing, which I find very exciting and interesting. It's going to be interesting to see which players on the periphery come in. I think, like I said, Rassie has a plan. I think he would have seen these games. I don't think he'll ignore that result against Australia. I think I think we take every opponent seriously, but I think he'll definitely be having another look over the plans and making sure. But I hope we see a bit more experimentation. I think he didn't bring as many fringe players within the squad. Most of the guys are pretty established. But I'd expect to see, I think he's fit, Edward van der Merwe come in, maybe even possibly at 15. Maybe.
Even thinking towards the Ireland game, which is going to be our next biggest game, do you not think you would be looking for a little bit of consistency in that?
I think so. I think your usual suspects will be there to a certain degree. I think with Reinach and Grant Williams doing equally so well and offering similar skill sets, but also different skill sets in their same way, I think you might see Grant start and Quibus come on and come on for the last 20 minutes and them switch up minutes like that. You might also possibly see Mani start at 10. The question is how much rest does he think the boys need? I would argue if there is an opportunity to rest guys, he's probably going to use it this far into a season for the Springboks. So who knows? You could see him go as far as bring in someone like Andre Pollard and really change it up. Maybe someone like, I think did Franco Mostert travel? He did. I think he is there. So I think you might see a sort of combination of sort of that.
Nice. Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I would love to see Ethan Hooker at 13. Ken Moody at 13 and Ethan Hooker at 12. That would be really, really interesting. I wonder if that's maybe something he'll keep for Wales rather than do it now for Italy. Italy beating Australia is a little bit of a tricky one because I think with Australia we've seen a lot of inconsistency. So they're either blowing hot or cold, and it may have just been them blowing cold this weekend, allowing Italy to then win. So maybe not the best sort of yardstick in terms of measuring Italy.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I think Italy also, if you look at their side, there are a lot of new young players emerging. Lina, for example, the scrum half had a fantastic game. I forget his name, but there's definitely this new sort of added flair to your Canones and guys that we've known previously. But they're also very wet behind the ears, new as international test match rugby players. So let's see if they can follow it up. I'm hoping for Italy to put up a good game. I'd like us to sweep them aside, of course.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to see a good contest. Maybe particularly sort of, again, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a measured approach again in the first 40 to 60 minutes, and then South Africa pull away.
Again, these autumn internationals is proving to be very vital in terms of seeding, and Australia losing to Italy is definitely going to hurt their momentum in terms of climbing the ranks, getting a good seed for their home World Cup. So we will be following that closely. Any other notes from your side?
No, I think we head to Turin.
Yeah, so we'll be flying up on Friday and we'll be spending the weekend in Turin, hopefully having then watched a good game. We will come back to you next week.
Back with Maxi,
back on the couch, back from Berlin. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments or disagreements or agreements with us, please comment down below.
Arrivederci.
Cheers.